All right, everyone. Well, thank you for attending our webinar today. It's our first webinar of the year, hosted by Data Products, called our Data Simplified series. I'm Jason Juliano. I'm the most recent team member, Chief Growth Officer for Data Products, and I have Mechie with me. She's our chief data scientist and founder and CEO for Data Products. Thank you for attending our first Data Simplified session of the year, Mechie. So you want to give any additional background on your bio?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy New Year. I am a recovering mathematician, and this is something I've been in the space for the last 2 decades or so. I'm very excited to be here. What we're seeing as we're working with clients is there is a really need. There's a gap in terms of understanding concepts. There's a lot of jargon terms. And so our goal with this series is to break things down for leaders, focus on different topics in a way that's digestible and that will help them make decisions from their business perspective.
Great. So we're going to kick off with some questions. First, if you haven't seen all the news about artificial intelligence within the last year, you've probably been hiding under a rock. But Mechie, if you could go into, what is artificial intelligence, the history that has taken us to evolve with AI within businesses today.
Thank you, Jason. So that's a very fundamental question, right? One of the things that I find usually as you're talking to senior leaders within organizations is there is a confusion. There is the use of the words interchangeably, AI, machine learning. And people go, oh, for all intents and purposes, they're the same thing. No, they're not. Let me try to see if I can explain this, right? So when we think about artificial intelligence, think of it synonymously with human intelligence, right? This refers to, say, simulating human intelligence in machines in a way that they're programmed to think and think like humans and mimic human actions, right? So human intelligence. Now, when you think of machine learning really refers to specific methods and algorithms that enable computers to learn from data and make decisions and predictions based on the data, right? So think of machine learning as something that enable artificial intelligence. So you can have artificial intelligence without machine learning, and you can have artificial intelligence with machine learning. I'm going to extend on that a little bit and talk about generative AI. So what's the difference between generative AI and artificial intelligence? So generative AI is a subfield of artificial intelligence that focuses on creating content such as text, images, sounds that resembles human-generated content. Again, like the term suggests, generative AI, so generating new content that mimics content that would have been generated by humans. Right, so we have artificial intelligence, we have machine learning, which is the type of function that could or could not be part of artificial intelligence. We have generative AI, that's a subfield of artificial intelligence. And what about large language models, right? So we all hear about LLMs. How do they fit into this sort of hierarchy scope? So LLMs are a type, now they're a subset of generative AI, right, that use deep learning techniques. It's a subset of machine learning to process human-generated text, right? Large, like the name suggests, really large amounts of body of text are used to train and process these models. So you have artificial intelligence, you have generative AI, which is a subset, and underneath that you have large language models that are part of it. And the large language models always pertain to text.
Can you go into foundation models also? That's been, there's a lot of news within foundation models and generative AI.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit. So foundation, so when we're talking about generative AI in particular, there are so many different types of models that exist. And they have been used, they have different purposes and different uses, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But before I get there, I think one of the questions that was asked previously was a history, and I think I skipped over that. So how has AI changed over time? So AI really started in the 50s, right? It sounds like it just started 2 years ago, but no, we have over 70 years of work that has been going into this field. It started in the 50s, and this was, if we've all heard of Alan Turing, one of the godfathers of computer science, he created a Turing test, which is a measure of machine intelligence, right? And that was synonymous with artificial intelligence. Now, the term itself was coined in 1956, right? Was coined at a Dartmouth conference by a professor, I cannot quite remember his name. Now, that was what happened in the 50s. In the 60s, we have like early research that focused on problem solving using symbolic methods. That's all AI. In the 70s, not much really happened. And then we skip to the 80s, right? We have expert systems like XCon, resurgence of neural networks, deep learning. That was happening in the 80s. We've noticed there's a miss between the 60s and the 80s. There's nothing really happened in the 70s. And I usually ask the audience, why? What was going on there? And one of the great answers someone told me was, well, everyone was doing psychedelics and having fun, right? In the 70s, and we didn't care about computations. That is true. But more importantly, there was a lot of innovation and upgrade happening in computation itself, right? That facilitated the next sort of decades in terms of driving artificial intelligence forward. So servers, computation, that was a lot of innovation and growth. New research was happening in the 70s. So in the 90s, right, we have IBM's Deep Blue, right, that defeated the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov. And that was a big thing that happened in the 90s, right? We had more growth in terms of machine learning with a focus on data-driven approaches. And sorry, in the 90s. In the 2006 specifically, the term deep learning was coined, right? In 2010, we have ImageNet competition that spurred advance in deep neural networks. And then a decade later, in 2010, we have IBM Watson that won Jeopardy, right? Showcasing the impact of natural language processing. That's around 2011. In 2014, we have GANs, which are generative adversarial network, right? Introduced by Ian Goodfellow. And a year later, we have Google's DeepMind, AlphaGo that defeats a human Go player. 2018, we have GPT, right, which is the sort of the first version of generative pre-trained transformers by OpenAI, the company, that marked a huge advancement in language models. And in 2019, GPT-2 was released, and then we know the rest that happened, right? And so that was all in the 2000s, that last decade. Jump over to 2020, which is more recently, right? GPT-3 was released in 2020. And what was really significant about GPT-3 was it was unveiled with about 175 billion parameters, right? That was a new standard for large language models. And then 2021, you have non-language models, more images like DALL-E, that was creating images from text. We have 2022, you have other art generators, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and a host of others that came into being. So that's a rundown, really, decade by decade of the growth, really, of AI and research.
Yeah, and I've personally been seeing a new AI startup starting like every day now.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
AI
Right.
startup. So yeah, a lot of excitement there. Taking this to our current present time, right? Can you outline some unique challenges that the mid-market businesses are facing today related to adopting AI technologies opposed to the enterprise?
Yes, absolutely. Right. So there are a few challenges that meet small-sized businesses and business leaders will face, right? First of all, you're thinking about resource constraint, right? You're working in a firm, you have a limited number of people, maybe people with the right skills, data resources, budgets, right? So how do you use what you have to make the best that works for your company or for your line of business? So that's something that you have to think about. Data quality is another big one, right? We all know garbage in, garbage out, right? So there is no good AI without good data. And so businesses might usually struggle with the quality of the data, the quantity of the data, so that's statistically significant, which are all crucial for effective AI. You have the talent and expertise, scalability challenge, that's the other one, right? So for small, mid-sized organization, how do you scale your AI solution so that it matches the growth? It can be a challenging prospect.
That's great. Thank you. Give me a second. I want to look at my notes here. Yeah, can you go into like existing, businesses in terms of small, medium businesses? How can they incorporate these with legacy systems? Working especially in manufacturing, there's all these MRPs and ERP legacy systems that, quite frankly, are too expensive to do, like forklift and implement new technologies and new solution. How can you integrate AI, technologies into their existing infrastructure, not causing any, existing high cost or any disruptions to the business?
That's a fantastic question, right? And I would start, like any good initiative, you need to have a plan, right? And our plan in this case is our AI strategy. So you need to have an AI strategy. That's critical. The second thing I'll follow up with is use cases do not equal AI strategy. Yes. So if you have someone that gives you a list of good use cases, that is good, but that does not make an AI strategy. So what goes into a plan? You start with assessment, right? Planning. You want to do a thorough assessment of the current, your IT infrastructure and business processes, right? It's going to help you understand how AI can be integrated with minimal disruptions, right? You want to identify the areas where AI can add the most value, right? So when you do that assessment, you have a plan. Now you're ready to go. And that plan could include the use cases, right? And your use cases, of course, are prioritized based on low-hanging fruit, highest impact, least complexity, highest visibility, right? You have a plan. Now you want to start with something that's scalable and modular, right? You want to offer scalable and modular AI solutions that can easily be integrated with your existing systems, right? This approach will allow you to start small and scale up as needed. You want to try to focus on solutions that are a bit more cloud-based AI systems, right? That way you don't have to manage all the infrastructure in-house, right? So if you're utilizing more AI services and platforms, this offers more scalability, flexibility, and tend to usually be a lot more cost-effective than on-premise solutions. You also want to think about collaboration with teams and as well as other line of business partners, right? You want to ensure that integrations are seamless when you're working with your IT team. This will provide valuable insights in terms of technical aspects and potential challenges that you might have in terms of integrating AI with legacy systems. You want to start with pilot projects, right? Start small, test, integrate in a controlled environment, release, and then scale. Like have the beacon on the hill and say, this is a starting pilot project that has worked great. This is what lessons learned, how we can improve upon it, rinse and repeat, right? Training and support, right? That's also very critical. You want to enable the staff to be adequately trained so they can use that AI solution that you just spent all this effort, time, and money implementing, right? So change management is a key factor in that process that should not be overlooked. Vendor selection, right? This is a key one that we see. How do you find, as a small, mid-sized organization or leader, or business leader, how do you find the right vendor to partner with? You want to look for someone that can create a strategic partnership. So you don't want someone that delivers a project and goes away, right? You want someone that you can have a strategic partnership that has some working experience, right? Whether it's your IT legacy systems or ERP solutions that you already currently have, and have the expertise not to just talk about the advisory work, but also the actual execution and implementation, right? That now it's not always easy to find partners that have a full-fledged of services that covers from advisory and strategy to implementation and education, but you want to find someone that has the most, or someone that has other partnerships that can help you, because you're going to need support along that pipeline, whether it's from advisory all the way to education, right? And once you have that, then it's just continuous monitoring and adapting.
Yeah, so I want to add to that because you and I have been, on a few engagements where, we've seen that, mid-sized companies don't even have a digital plan in place, right? Nor do they have governance around, cleansing their data. They don't know what data they have, and what's the benefits of, internal and external data sets that they may have also, right? But then aligning that to their overall business plan, right? I see there's a missing link to that many times. So and quite frankly, that's the reason why a lot of these AI initiatives fail, because they just want to throw the AI tool into the business process, and it's like the old making sure that you have high hygiene on your systems, your technologies, your business processes, and your people, right? So like, what are the real AI benefits and limitations that you see today in the mid-market space?
I'll start with, so there are quite a few, right? And Jason, feel free to jump in, please, and complete statements. But these are the top ones that come to mind, right? The first one, and the easiest to implement one that you can see impact right away, is efficiency and automation, right? You want to automate routine tasks. That's going to drive efficiency and cost optimization, right? You're going to get, the second is data insights. Right. So AI can help you provide valuable insights from your data that would drive your decision making and your strategy. The third is customer experience, right? We all know that customer is king here. So you want to enhance your customer experience through personalization, whether it's in terms of services and or support, right? AI, large language models, generative AI can be very, very useful in those situations and help you, frankly, give you a leg up in terms of your competitive advantage.
So what type of limitations do you see in the mid-market?
The resource constraint that we talked about, key one, right? Scalability, talent and expertise, the data, right? All those are significant limitations that come into it. Oh, I forgot another benefit that's actually top of line, marketing, right? Because especially if you're referring to generative AI or large language models generating content, that will help significantly marketing and perhaps even sales.
Okay, so just going back to the benefits and limitation, a lot of times, especially in the mid-market, they don't have the proper people, right? So, the best place to get there is to bring in, experts, subject matter experts into, their businesses and, basically, help solve, a lot of these problems with, some low-hanging fruit, like you mentioned before, having that AI strategy, right? Pick a project that you find true, ROI on right away. So then you could just continue to enhance and increase your investments within, those business processes. Another question I have is, what type of businesses can you find return on investment to effectively measure, their, KPIs and initiatives within these new tools and systems?
That's another fantastic question, right? Because I'm sure everyone has heard the boss or had their boss tell them, let's do AI. Where's the AI? Why we're not doing AI? Everyone there, Bob over there is doing AI, right? And so you want to sort of take the conversation back and say, okay, we're going to do AI, but what is our directive, right? What are we working towards? What are we driving towards? What do we expect after we say implement an AI initiative? So this is where those IRIs come in, right? What are the performance metrics that you want out of AI? And this is going to vary again from a case by case basis, right? Depending on what the issue is, the problem, the solution, right? But the key is you want to come up with these performance metrics and level set before you actually do implementation so that you're aware and tracking and seeing if it's actually hitting the impact of where you want it, right? You want to track the improvements, the performance improvements in the processes where the AI was implemented to see. Another sort of metric or ROI that you can use is around cost reduction. We talked about automation and driving efficiency, right? How can you measure the cost savings resulting from the automation and efficiency gains, right? Is it number of hours, right? Are you able to free up time from resources doing very routine manual tasks that it can then focus on more strategic thinking and task, right? Are you able to save time in serving your customers better, right? And so that improves costs in terms of providing that service. Those are all things that you think about. Of course, there's revenue growth, right? Assess any increase in revenue attributing to the AI solution. Were you able to create new customer experiences, new product, new features? How did that drive value or revenue for the organization or for that line of business? Those are things to think about. What about customer satisfaction, right? That's another good ROI. Can you measure it? Were there changes in it? Did it go up? Did it go down? By how much? Like, did it go up significantly enough to warrant the investment that was put in for that AI solution, right? What about innovation? People always tend to forget this one. Innovation index, sort of a measure of doing something innovative within your organization, right? That's really important because it's not tied directly to dollars and or time, people forget about it. But innovation is important because it creates a competitive advantage. It makes you stand out. And that helps portrays you in a really good light to your clients, your innovative organization, but also to your internal resources, to employees. Who doesn't want to work for an innovative organization, right? So if they're aware that you're doing sort of innovative work, right, it might make it easier for you to attract the right talent that you need.
Yeah, I've seen you integrate innovation for our clients' culture, right? Really ingraining that within their team's culture. But just going back to the KPIs, if you're not measuring, you can't manage, right?
Right.
So, it's important to, really figure out what KPIs, and quite frankly, in the mid-market space, you mentioned automation. Part of that automation, especially in accounting, there's a lot of these mundane tasks, right? So how can I leverage artificial intelligence to handle some of these mundane tasks? You could do an accounts payable, accounts receivable, where you're automating the processes and you're using AI to like read in invoices, POs, contracts, pulling that data out, integrating into business processes and making sure that you automate it, figure out how much time it takes before you implemented those tools, and then how much time you're saving you implemented those tools. That's one of KPIs you could implement.
Let me add on that a little bit because you bring up a really good point around the processes, especially when it's about automation and efficiency gains. Say you don't have an AI solution right now, you're in no plans for it. What other things that you can be doing? Absolutely, right? First of all, if you're driving towards process automation, right, and efficiency gains, you need to understand your process. You need to have a process. What's your SOP, your standard operating process? If you do not have that, you need to start capturing that and start enabling, whether it's through change management or training, to get your resources, your staff to actually start implementing that SOP. And that just makes it easier than when you have a vendor or even internally within a team to implement AI solution for automation. Then you have that laid out, you have a history of how this works, and they can seamlessly do that for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of times it's missed also, right? Another question is, in terms of common hurdles in the mid-market, can you talk about accessing and utilizing data in AI applications and how businesses are overcoming these challenges today?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. I think we started this by saying garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
Basically, when it comes to AI, data is king. So what do? The first thing is, do you have, Jason mentioned about the digital strategy, same thing, a data strategy or data and analytics strategy. And this just means a plan for whether it's around analytics that you're doing within the organization. It could be BI, so business intelligence. It could be about the infrastructure. It could be about the governance, right, of the data. It could be about the organizational structure, right? Do you have the right teams to support any data needs for the organization? And this is like base level before you want even to start thinking about building like a large AI advanced, a complex system within the organization. You need to have your data ready, right? So how are you collecting? If you're not collecting data, you find a lot of mid-sized organizations that have processes and interactions that they're not capturing the data. What can you do? And can you start capturing it? Right? You want to establish a robust data collection and management practice, right? And this would include data accuracy, completeness, and consistency, right? You want to create data partnerships. Where you're forming partnerships with collaborations that create access to diverse data sets, right? This is another thing about AI models, in particular, when we're talking about generative AI and AI large language models. The diversity of the data matters. It matters significantly, right? So to the efficiency of the solution. So that's something to keep in mind. Data governance, right? We all want to think about what's the privacy ethics, who has access to what, for what purpose, right? All these new laws are coming to play. We all know that GDRP is in play. From if you're in Europe, if you're in US based, you have consumer protection laws like the CCPA, that's a California Consumer Protection Law, I think. You have the Illinois biometric law. This is about information that's personal for the, and you have the Healthcare Information Privacy Act, HIPAA, right? So all this you want to keep in mind as you're creating your governance policy. Now, it sounds like a lot, and it is, but keep in mind that policies is just a piece of paper, right? That's just one step, right? And you can change and adjust. Think of it like a living, breathing thing. As new regulations and policies coming out, you're updating it. But what's critical is that you have the means to actually execute the governance. So if you say you have a rule as part of your policy, a governance policy on your data that only certain people can access a particular data for a particular reason, you need to have an infrastructure system or data hub that will allow monitoring, that will allow rules that only these people that have this right can access it. Otherwise, there's no use having a policy if you cannot really implement it successfully. You want to think about leveraging public data sources to improve the diversity or add dimensions to your data so that your AI models are much more effective, right? What public sources are out there? I'll tell you a brief story. So there is this project that we did, and we were reviewing a business's past data. Think of it like a sale. So they're B2C and they sell shampoos, right? And we're looking at their year over year, and we see some cyclical insights, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. We see that a particular week in the summer, sales really, really spike. And we're wondering, why is that? There's nothing, this is shampoo. Why are sales spiking for shampoo during this particular week in the summer? And we had to pull out events that are happening around. And we noticed that this actually corresponded to a dog show, right? Now, this provided the customer with a great insight that people were actually possibly buying their shampoo for their pets, and provided an added revenue for them to say, they can get a version that they can then market specifically for pets. So it's important to pull in public data to add added dimension and context around what your information is showing you, right? You also want to think about cleaning the data tools, right? What do you want to invest in it to improve data quality? Again, because the data quality really is a key determinant of the value of the output that you get.
And you should do it on an ongoing basis too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's never ending, guys, right? So rinse and repeat. So
Yeah, yeah,
this,
exactly.
this is not a race, it's a marathon, right? You start small, you have a plan, you keep going, you rinse and repeat.
Yeah, as you mentioned, having, that governance model in place will, help you gain a competitive advantage with your competitors. No, that's great. So just to interrupt and make sure that our audience are paying attention, we have a poll question. Nancy, what's the poll question we have?
The poll question is, what is your level of understanding of AI? I'm going to launch it now. And we went with Star Wars themed options. All right, I think just about everyone submitted their answers already. Perfect. And the majority of Padawans with some training under their belt and can speak to matters of AI. And a couple of Jedis and Jedi Masters. Knights and Masters. That's awesome.
Well,
I
Matt
want
can definitely teach you to be a Jedi Master.
right. I want to jump in here and add something here, guys. As we're talking, if questions come up, please just drop them in the chat box. If we don't get to them immediately, we're going to get to them at the end of this. But this is meant to be interactive and answer any questions that you have. So please add your questions in there.
All right, appreciate that. All right, so what type of criteria should businesses consider when evaluating AI vendors, potential partnerships, strategic partnerships, just to make sure that it aligns to their business needs and business objectives?
That's a great question, right? And we actually have a course that we teach people specifically on this, right? Not just in terms of vendor evaluation, but also because you're using AI for a particular reason, how is that going to have your impact, whether it's the value of your organization, to tie that in all together. So, but talking of the key things that come to mind, right? You want to assess a vendor's expertise in AI, right? Within their industry. Do they have experience that's particular to your industry? And maybe that's not a deal breaker, but it's just one of the things to keep in mind. If they do, then of course that's an added bonus. Are they able to customize and scale solutions, right? Whether they're out of the box solutions that already exist or to build from scratch something that's very bespoke to your needs. Are they able to implement Copilot? Are they able to grab a model, whether it's ChatGPT, and build something around it, or OpenAI API call, or Llama, or any of the others, right? And build something around it. That's important. Are they able to provide support and training, right? It doesn't end with just delivering a project and walking away. Remember that you want to stop thinking about initiatives as projects and start thinking of them as products, right? It's really critical to think of every initiative as a product. We are beyond where you just deliver stuff and walk away. This is a heavy investment and you want it to work. So you're thinking growth, agile, continuous improvement, continuous development. So are they able to provide the support and maintenance for you? Are they able to provide training for your staff to use it on a continuous basis? Things to think about. Think about compliance and security, right? How knowledgeable are they about this in terms of whether it's adherence to the industry standards and regulations, or able to implement DevOps or DevSecOps, so security operations, within the implementation of the solution that align to your policy if you have one, or if not, guide you in terms of how you should think about these things, right? Best practices. And of course, cost effectiveness, right? I know everyone can cut the purse according to their budget. So it's always important to think about costs, right? But not necessarily the most important thing, but it is an important factor as well.
So, working with a lot of mid-sized businesses, what we see today also are a lot of issues around cybersecurity. As you have a lot of this press around ChatGPT and Copilot. Businesses, especially in the mid-market, are concerned. What happens to my data if I have my team members and my employees use this, right? And we kind of briefly talked about foundation models, but that's part of that, making sure that, there's healthy hygiene within your AI strategies. But can you go into like, what are the potential risks of just using ChatGPT or, Copilot, putting your intellectual property in there, and then how can you create safeguards to help you streamline that and protect the business?
This is another topic that could be a whole webinar on its own, right?
We have some time, so the best to answer it.
All right, let's take this one step at a time. So when you think about large language models, we don't want to be very vendor specific. There are a couple of things that come across. The first thing that you want to really consider is, how is this data trained, right? What data was trained? What data was used to train the model, right? Is it very specific? I can tell you specific stories on each. A good one is, clearly I'm African American woman, and there are lots of generative AI tools that will produce really nice professional pictures of you. However, if I were to try to use those, it's a disaster. The machine cannot make up its mind whether my hair is natural or straight, is permed, is in rollers, or in braids. So it gives this hodgepodge of a look that is unrealistic. And the reason is because there's not enough data to train the model for people that look like me. So again, we talked about diversity, and diversity is really important. I'll go on a little bit of a backwagon there and extend on that. One of my favorite things, or rather, important things, I should say, to talk about is what I call data colonization. And let me explain what I mean by that. Is the idea, and I'll explain from a corporate perspective, it's the idea where you take data that you're not familiar with the domain, but because you're an analyst or AI or data scientist, and you can work with it and use it to come up with conclusions and create policy without actually understanding the context. Imagine you being a data analyst and taking supply chain data and doing some stuff and come to a conclusion and present it to the VP of supply chain and saying that, and come to a conclusion without understanding the domain or some underlying context. The point is, it doesn't work, right? You need some domain training. I'll tell you a good story. One of my favorite stories to tell about this. There is this nonprofit that does really amazing work in Africa. They go about building wells in different villages that have no access or very far access to fresh water. So they found this village is next in line, and after doing their pre-check and research, these women have to spend about 3 to 4 hours every single day trekking with big buckets of water on their galley to go carry fresh water from the streams to bring it back to their village. And they decided, they're going to do some fantastic work, right? And build a well for this village. And so right in the center of the compound, they build a well, and they think that everything is fantastic. And so they leave and then come back a year later and want to do their feedback and see how this is actually impacting the lives of the villagers. So they did a survey and talked to the women. I'm like, what do you think? Are you really happy about this well? And every single one of these women was not happy about this. And the reason they gave was this: all our lives, from the time we wake up, from the time we go to bed, it's about caring for others, whether it's the kids, our husbands, sweeping, cleaning, our parents. Our time to go drive the water, yes, it's tedious. We have to walk an hour, but that is our personal time. And by building a well right in the center of the village, you took that time away from us. Right. So this is a clear example where it's well-meaning. You use data, you make a decision, and you come to a conclusion, but you completely miss out the underlying context because you're not communicating. You're taking the data and you're colonizing it and you're running away with it from your perspective. Right. Another great example is you think about the pandemic. every single person became an expert in virology and diseases. Every person that could run a spreadsheet, right? And they have absolutely no background in biology or disease or infectious diseases, and yet they will come up with predictions about how things were spreading because they could run a regression model. So we want to be really contextually careful about that. So that's one thing to keep around. And the other thing there are a few more, and I just went on the bandwagon right there. Another thing to consider is the training process, right? Do you have a feedback sort of incorporated into it? How is the data prepared, right? Those are all things that matter. Ethics, right? Whose data is used in training it? Do you have permission to use that data? Is it diverse data? Is it coming from one source? Is it coming from multiple sources that truly represent the end users that are going to be using the solution? Those are all things to consider. I'm sure I'm missing quite a few things, but those are the ones that pop to mind.
All right, we have a question, ethical issue. Let me see. Computer and society, new technology, there are unintended consequences, foreseeable risks, and bias that are raised when designing new systems and mindless using machine learning algorithms. What are your thoughts? What are the best practices that you can share with us?
Perfect. That's a great question, right? There are lots of risks, and ensuring that the data is diverse is really one key one, right? Like we mentioned, so if it's diverse, so that you don't have pictures that are generated that have me labeled something different, right? A great example of a bias is, again, this is something that happened during the COVID, where if you have a picture, you took a picture of a white guy, same shirt, same dress, same height, dimensions, just skin color difference, and they had something in their pockets, right? A generative AI model would label that as, if the person was white, as someone that had a pen in their pocket. If that person was black, it would label as someone having a gun, right? So the impacts can be quite life-changing and right? So that's something to be aware of. Who is building the model? Are part of the end users, are they going to be part of the model development team? They need to be part of that conversation so that we don't end up with data colonization, right? So that there's context and interpretation added to that. Those are sort of things that you can use to mitigate. Do you have any checks and balances, right? In terms of when a particular scope of how the model is going to be used. You should think about all those things. And to be clear, I'm talking about generative AI and large language models, but really this sort of extends to all AI models in general.
Yeah, so as part of that, making sure that you're doing assisted machine learning training, having a constant feedback loop where, you're validating the results you get from the algorithms, but then you're providing, corrective information to make sure that your confidence score increases and you're getting the output that, the model should be pushing out.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, sounds good. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
There was another from earlier. How can I start this without making too much investment in AI?
So when someone says how they can start with it, the first thing I ask them is, what will be their dream vision? You need to come up with a vision first, right? So come up with a vision in terms of what this looks like, and not necessarily now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 3 years from now. How does AI look in terms of whether it's in terms of how it functions, how it's impacting your business? That's how you want to start with that. And then once you have your vision, then is, where are you right now? Right? You do that assessment. Where are you right now, but it's in terms of data, infrastructure, resources, right? Where are the gaps that you need? Create a list of use cases. We call that use case articulation. You prioritize those based, again, lowest hanging fruit, which just means highest visibility, lowest complexity, highest impact. You want to start with those. Pick one example, have that do a pilot, rinse and repeat. Lessons learned, scale, rinse and repeat. And once you have that, then you can then build the structure around it, whether it's a governance, a team, ensure that both your data and your data strategy as well as your AI strategy are all aligned, and also align to the overarching business strategy that you have, right? Because technology is fine, but we run businesses, right? And business strategy should be the North Star within which everything follows.
Yeah, so there's definitely a value ladder to that, right? What's your business strategy? What's your digital strategy? What's your data strategy? And then finally, what's your AI strategy, right?
Right.
And like we mentioned before, just making sure that we have the appropriate, KPIs, again, because, what you can't measure, you can't manage. And you want to make sure that the data is cleansed and we have proper data governance, right? I would also say for the audience, so the European Union pushed out something called the AI Act, and in the United States, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies will be taking some of those key points from the AI Act and implementing it within the United States. You've probably seen some press with the White House talking about risk management and AI. So take a look at that, because if you're doing business, especially in the United States, but cross borders too, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate regulations and you're adhering to proper practices. So Mechie, any key takeaways you want to give to our audience, and maybe some free resources for our audience to use to just help them get more educated?
Absolutely. So let's start with this. At bottom line, AI integration should be strategic, right? It needs to start with an assessment, and then you need to plan. It needs to be strategic. It's not just a one-off use case by use case. You want to focus on something that's scalable, modular, cloud-based for cost effectiveness. You want to prioritize data quality and governance for successful AI applications. You want to measure your ROI. You want to take your KPIs. You want to use that to your board. We all have bosses, right? Whether it's your board you're reporting to, you want to showcase this is how you spent your budget, and this is the impact of it. That's really critical. You want to choose your AI vendors carefully, right? Focusing on expertise, support, and customization. Continuous adoption and learning is crucial, right? That's my key takeaways. In terms of resources, we have a resource platform that we're going to make. It's launched, but it's soft right now, so it's available only to a limited number of people. We're going to open it wide in the next couple of weeks. So watch your space. Please sign up or follow us on LinkedIn. We're going to announce that once we have that. It's going to be filled with resources on AI and data literacy. So training for different sorts of groups of people for different functions, lots and lots of free stuff, lots of communities and forums to engage with.
Yeah, we're constantly trying to bring more value to our community. So if you have any thoughts, tips, or you want to learn anything specific within data and AI, please reach out to us and let us know what type of content. We'll bring in some additional panelists too, subject matter experts that really live and breathe that from a day-to-day perspective. So we're bringing that value back to our community. So with that, I want to thank everyone. If no one has any additional questions, we could wrap this up. Mechie, thank you so much for kicking off our 2024 Data Simplified webinar, and we're doing these at least once a month, but we have some guest speakers, surprise guest speakers. We'll throw another webinar throughout that month. Again, thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.